Hello and welcome to the week ahead. Starting off this week, I'm going to just point out the obvious that everything I've been saying for many, many weeks is still true, and that is as long as we are continuing to get daily higher lows on the QQQ and SPY, the bulls are in complete control. This is blue line here is the daily EMA 12, and that is continuing to hold as support. So again, the simple statement: as long as EMA 12 continues to hold as support, as long as daily higher lows are continuing to be set, the bulls are in complete control. We are now rising into fresh all-time highs. You can see here I've got a rising wedge drawn. Take that with a grain of salt. I think rising wedges are a great pattern to use when you are scouting a particular thing. So for example, if you're in a downtrend and you have a rising wedge and you're looking for, say you have a 5-minute rising wedge and you're in a 1 hour downtrend, then the rising wedge could be pointing out that the top that you're looking for, maybe an hourly lower high, is present. However, in all-time highs, wedges have a very good probability of breaking bull. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about, how could this keep going? I think you look at this and you see the narrowing happening. It's making day trading a little more difficult, as you can see. Like the ranges down here were insanely huge. They were still large here, getting smaller, getting smaller, getting smaller, getting smaller. The day ranges are getting very, very tight, and that doesn't mean to me that the top is in. It just means that um, volatility is coming one way or the other. And I've gone back on this chart and I've looked at it a little bit to try to find some examples of when this has happened and what was the result of that. Couldn't find any great examples, but essentially I would say that one of two things is going to happen from here, and that is either we actually do get a little bit of a retracement and set some sort of weekly higher low, which at this point, if we look at the weekly time frame, you'd be thinking about this prior all-time high as a great place for price to come back and test. I think I've said it a few weeks now that I would love a retracement. And here's the weekly EMA 12, like a move, a little bit of a grind higher, and then a dip down, something like keep going up, and then a hard flush into the weekly EMA 12, and then a higher low and away, something like that would be fantastic. But don't count your chickens. You just because we're in a super bull market right now, regardless of anything happening in the news, regardless of anything you hear online, this is just what's happening. And until this changes and the simple statement becomes untrue, we're going higher. I just drew this wedge on here because I saw it, and it helped me to realize, oh, the reason day trading can be kind of difficult in this environment is because the ranges are getting tighter. Everything I'm about to describe to you about the potential top is stuff that I've learned from the Chart Guys community. I trade in a few different communities, and when it comes to technical analysis, my firm belief is that the Chart Guys are the kings, and within them, Charting Man Dan McDermott is just a fantastic coach and teacher. And what I'm about to describe is something that I learned from them, which is basically that the market is split up into two sides. There's the technology side over here, which is represented by QQQ and SMH, and then there's the other major portions of the S&P. I have S&P down here, which are XLF, XLV, and IWM. And nothing can happen to one without it also happening to the other. So what you typically see in a bull market is as one portion of the S&P is moving up, you'll see another portion retrace. So if I look at XLF, they were pulling back from Thursday, July 3rd to the 16th. So let me just draw a little line on there. So the 3rd to the 16th was basically pulling in. So what was QQQ doing from the 3rd to the 16th? So you have technology essentially going up, with QQQ and SMH, the semiconductors, moving up, and then XLF, XLV, and IWM rotating. Rotation out of one as you move up in the other. And then as soon as here we get since this day here, the 21st of July to basically end of the week last week, we have XLV moving up, we have XLF moving up, and here on SPY was basically grinding sideways through all this time and then moving up. And we had SMH from that date moving down. And we had QQQ moving up, so just grinding up. And SPY, of course, benefiting because we had most of everything. So SPY moving up solidly while QQQ is grinding upwards. SMH is retreating a little bit, and we have strength in XLF, strength in XLV, and sideways to up in IWM. So if you just look at these things, look at SPY representing the market overall, technology on one side over here, XLF, XLV, and IW on the other. And you can pretty much clearly see why SPY does what it does. And as long as we have this rotation where, as long, everything is either going up together or there's something moving up and another portion moving down, giving a little bit of rest, that's fine. Everything's going to continue and SPY is going to continue to move upwards. What happens sometimes is you'll see all sectors, XLF, XLV, IWM, SMH, and QQQ all moving down at the same time. When that happens, that's when you get a major market move, because that essentially means that for the major portions of the S&P, money is moving out. Okay, so if you look back at the big drop we had with the tariff bottom, you'll see that for the most part, everything started to move down at the same time across all of the major sectors. We had a little bit of strength in XLV for a few days, and then finally it rolled over here. I guess that would be, it began on whatever this date was, the 7th of March, which was still a down day in other parts of the market. But yeah, that's what it looks like, is when the market's going to go down, the rotation ends. The move from sector to sector is over and things really start to move down. And as an intraday trader, you'll really know that it's happening, because you'll be watching a chart like this one. This is kind of what you're going to see on a day where the market is moving down at the same time. So when you see major selling, here you can see an XLF, it was almost like robotic selling for this move down. At QQQ, same thing. SMH, same thing. SPY, same thing. IWM, same thing. XLV, kind of choppy, but moving down. You're going to see over and over again that all major sectors will be setting new lows of day at the same time. When I say all major sectors, I mean these: QQQ, SMH, XLF, XLV, IWM. And again, this is something I learned from the chart guys. It's something that I'm always watching out for. And this is how you're going to know. It won't just be one thing moving down, which we even had some of last week. We had QQQ and SPY moving down at the same time last week. But at the same time that they were moving down, XLF was moving up. XLV was moving up. So anytime I see a major flush happening on any of the sectors, the first thing I do is jump to a chart like this, a table where I can see all major sectors at the same time, and I can look at them and see, wait, is everything moving down together? Are we setting new lows on everything at the same time? Because if we are, that's a major signal to me that money is leaving the market. Quite often on these days, you'll also see the VIX will be, pushing new fresh highs. So volatility increasing. That's another sign that basically the market is finally getting the pull-in that you want. So these are days where you want to get short as soon as possible. Like as soon as you realize what's going on, you want to try to get short and ride this momentum down. And if you can't get in, if you don't realize it until too late, that's fine. There will be lower highs. Just wait for them. Look for an hourly lower high or something like that in a subsequent day or on the day of. But typically when we get big days, like big red days like this in the market, they do close at low of day. And so it's worth taking a shot with some wide risk if you're late. So anyway, that's what I'm looking for. We're in this grindy, upward trending market, and as long as here you can see like SPY is strong, as long as this week or daily EMA 12 is holding, bulls are in complete control. The current bottom that I'm really watching on SPY is this double bottom over here. That's a line in the sand for me for sure, but there's also this daily higher low that we just set last week. And so that's what I'm going to talk about next, is my trade of the week. This week was on SPY. So we had a dip here on Tuesday, and the dip was basically, we broke low of prior day from Monday and had this nice solid dip. This was a great buy opportunity if you managed to get it. I wasn't watching SPY, I was trading another name, but I had a wonderful, wonderful Tuesday. Where dips like this to me are gold, and so I had a solid green day on this day because I'm watching these dips, waiting for strong names to bounce. And I traded NVIDIA, which actually sadly didn't have, NVIDIA did this where it went sideways, but then it just sort of trickled out throughout the day. It didn't have the strength that other names like SPY had, but the move off the lows was still a solid win for me, and had a great day. Okay, so we had this sort of rest day on Tuesday where we set this daily higher low, and on Wednesday that was my trade of the week, where we had been gapping up, and when I see gapping up like that, I'm not exactly sure, are we going to just run right off the open? So I wait to see what's going to happen. Here you see the first move was down. I typically look to buy those dips right off the open on strength days. But I was patient this day. I waited. I wanted to see what was going to happen. We did set a little, I guess it's a 5-minute downtrend here. And as we kept coming lower and lower and lower, and we're moving down below VWAP, I'm very aware that we are above yesterday's high and we're looking for gap fill. I looked away from the chart when it during this time period. I was looking at another name trying to trade it, and as I didn't look back at this chart until we had already touched yesterday high of day, so filled that gap, moved up, and then we were right on this inside bar when I started looking at the SPY chart again. So let me zoom in on this. So this inside bar here is where I started looking at the chart again. And I realized, oh my goodness, I think I might have missed the move. But any dip I get that doesn't get down this low, I know I want to get in on it. And so I was watching SPY, and when SPY gave this red candle here, I saw that as a serious gift. So right as it came in, and I was very aware of like the move from here to here, what's about a 50% retrace of that. I was just eyeballing it, but let's draw it on there. So 50% retrace is here. I'm looking for a higher low. I don't really care if it comes in close. I'm going to take the shot. It came in down below the 50% retrace. I took my shot there. I bought right in here, and I had my stop below the low that we'd set. And what happened next is a little disappointing because we did have news later in the afternoon that shot it up like this, which was wonderful. But what happened to me is I was actually not at my desk this week. I was away visiting my parents and working on their internet. And after I got this entry, which was just a banger entry, price started moving up here. And when it got up to VWAP, I went to sell a portion and cover my risk to the lows. And when I clicked the buttons to do it, nothing happened. And I was like, what the heck? So I clicked it again and nothing happened. And I did a stupid thing where I clicked it 2 or 3 times because it wasn't working. And I was like, aggravated trying to make it work while price was where I wanted it to be. And it was their internet. Their internet was slow. The orders had been sent. Every single time I pressed that button, what it essentially did was go to sell half. And they had been getting filled, but because their internet was slow to respond, it wasn't notifying me that the fills were taking place. And so by the time they started notifying me, I was like, click, 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 click. And I think I did it 3 times. I sold half. And then nothing happened. I was like, what the heck is going on? And then suddenly, bing, 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 they all came back, and my trade had been cut in half 3 times. So that was disappointing because the rider it was basically down to like a mini riders from that point. And so I profited on this trade, and I closed at high of day. But it was disappointing because I wish I could have held on to more size to catch this move that happened in the afternoon. Because I was watching it sort of trickle up, and I was like, I guess it's not such a bad thing. This thing might just be wedging up and setting a lower high. But then we got this news, and it shot up, and I was like, oh no. So that's the way it goes sometimes. But yeah, trade of the week for sure. I just loved the backfill, the gap fill here, and the higher low. I don't actually normally trade SPY, but if you look at QQQ on the same day, so here was Tuesday's down move on QQQ, and QQQ had been trying to gap up in pre-market and then failed and then come in lower. So, while SPY was up trying to fill the gap down to yesterday high day, QQQ was within the prior day's range. So with technology not as strong, I tend to focus on names that are stronger. And when I looked at QQQ, I was like, oh, that doesn't look very good. I wonder what SPY looks like. Jumped over to SPY and saw this, and I was like, oh, wow, yeah, this is a way better setup than what I'm seeing on QQQ. So I jumped to the better name. Okay, so that's basically it for me this week. I think this coming week, July 28th, is going to be an interesting one. We have earnings on deck. UNH is an interesting one I'm going to be watching because UNH has been, I don't know how I can say it. One of my best trades of the year this year was on UNH, where I bought 250 down here on this day and just had a banger trade coming up out of that. But as you can see, if you jump to the weekly, it's not looking so hot. It tried to move up, and now the 50-day simple moving average is pushing it down. The lows here from that bottom are coming into play. But because we're seeing weakness, we're seeing it get pushed down into earnings, I'm very curious to see if we get a solid, like a positive earnings and a rally out of this. So it's something that I know a lot of traders are actually trading right now and interested in. There was a bit of, here, I gotta get this off. There was a bit of reprieve here on Friday after some moves down earlier in the week that were pretty strong on news. But yeah, I'd be interested to see, is this thing going to rally out of this? So that's one I'm watching. I'm always watching the Mag 7. So Meta, Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, all happening on the same week. I'm very much paying attention to all those names, and I will be trading them after hours this week. We have Robinhood, which has been on a tear, Coinbase, which was on a tear and is getting a bit of rest now, and another one in the semi space that I'm interested in is ARM. So yeah, keep your eyes on those this week. Definitely need to be paying attention. The market will be watching to see how they react, and they will drive the direction that we go. Yeah, when I say that, I'm talking about the Mag 7. Okay, so that's it for me. I hope you guys have a great week. Good luck and happy trading. Hey, if you like the content on my videos and you like the indicators I produce on TradingView, please remember to like and subscribe.